back to my YouTube channel. I am Gabriel. In this video, we shall be looking at paper 1 theory of February-March 2025. This is 0417 syllabus, component 1-2. And typically, the paper lasts for 1 hour 30 minutes. Don't forget also that the total mark for this paper is 80. Alright, so we have done the practical papers, paper 2 and paper 3. Now let's see the paper 1 theory. Globally, many candidates have issues with paper 1 ICT theory, but in this video will help you to understand the command words, how to understand the question given to you so that you can give the precise answer. Now let's go. The first question, circle two input devices. Input devices. Actually you can pick that from here. Let me input devices to circle. Now it is not actuator, it is not Blu-ray disc, it is not cloud, keyboard is one, it is not flash memory, it is not hard disk, mouse is another, and it is not SD card. So this is for 2 marks. All right, take note of that. Then the second question, a computer system uses applications, software, and system software. Emphasis on application and system software. Describe the following software. Spreadsheet. Now, the keyword or the command word here is describe. And this is a 2-mark question. Let's see what the command word describe means. Describe simply means state the point of a topic or of a term, or give characteristics and its main features. So you understand that. So the question says you should describe the following software. So the first one is Spreadsheet. Now, because it's a software, of course, it is an electronic document. You understand? So you can say that. Let me put it in color red. So you can say a spreadsheet software, it is an electronic document that has data arranged in rows and columns. You understand? It is typically used for data manipulation in form of calculation. Right. So it is best suited for numeric data. It is best suited for analyzing numeric data. Okay, so this is what you can say about electronic, about spreadsheet. Then all this will earn you 2 or even more marks. Then when you talk about database software, it's a software that is used for collection of organized data. We don't say organized, you can say structured data. You understand? So you can say that data can be easily searched for. You understand? So you can say that when it comes to a database software, can be easily searched for. Okay, you can store data, because a database management system or a database software is used to manipulate data in an organized manner. Okay, so you can do that. Then applet. What's an applet? An applet is a small application program. It performs simple functions, or specific function. So all this will earn you the full mark as far as that question is concerned. Also, let's go to the next question. State 3 types of system software. That means in system software we have more than 3 types actually. So but the question has asked you to state 3 types. Now when the command word state is used, state simply means that express in clear terms. That is state means. So you can look at this and just state it. State 3 types of system software. So you could say operating system, that's very popular. Operating systems. You could also say maybe linkers, compilers. You could also say maybe utility or device drivers or utilities. All right, these are all types of system software. So any 3 year will give you the full mark. Take note of that. So let's go to the next question very quickly. The next question, question 3. A doctor uses an expert system to diagnose a patient's illness. And you know that expert system, is used to mimic the expertise of an expert in a particular area. So in the medical area, you can use an expert system to diagnose. Okay, so the question now says describe. We have looked at the meaning of describe the other time. How expert systems produce diagnosis of an illness. You understand? And we said when we look at describe, we simply mean state the points or give characteristics and main features. So that's what describe simply means. So let us see how we can describe this very quick. So looking at the expert system, okay, we need to know that an expert system is developed to mimic the expertise and knowledge of an expert in a particular field. Whatever field where an expert system will be applied to, then that means the system, it will be developed in such a way that it will mimic, it will behave exactly like an expert in that particular field. So these are the examples of areas where expert system can be used or deployed: prospecting for oil and minerals, diagnostics like finding fault in a car engine, finding fault on a circuit board, etc., or even in medical diagnosis, which the current question we are treating is talking about, or in strategy games such as chess, tax and financial planning, route scheduling for delivery vehicles, identification of plants, animals and chemical compounds, and so on and so forth. But now let's see in medical diagnosis. Now we can see that the advantages of expert system, like we have it highlighted here, they offer a high level of expertise, they offer high accuracy, the results are consistent, they have the ability to store vast amount of ideas and facts, they can make traceable logical solutions and diagnostics. It's possible for an expert system to have multiple types of expertise. Disadvantages, of course, are users of the expert system need considerable training for them to be able to use it correctly. The setup and maintenance costs are very high. They tend to give very cold responses, which may not be appropriate because they could not feel, they will not be able to have that human feelings. That is it. They are only as good as the information that is entered into the system. Users sometimes make the very dangerous assumption that they are infallible, and they are not. Of course, now these are the typical component of an expert system. For an expert system, we have the explanation system, user interface, inference engine, knowledge base, rule base. Any expert system that will be built in any given area, right, they must have this particular structure. So there must be the screen for user interface that will serve as user interface where the user interacts with the expert system. There must be a component called the explanation system, another component called the inference engine, another component called the knowledge base, and of course rules base as another component. So but we want to go into the question is saying that describe how an expert system produces diagnosis of an illness. That is either diagnosis of an illness or detecting faults in an automobile or prospecting oil. Expert system can actually give us answers based on how it was built. So let's see how we can use that knowledge to answer this question. For example, like I told you about the user interface, that's the component of an expert system, and this is the method by which the expert system interacts with a user. The explanation system that informs the user of the reasoning behind the expert system conclusion or judgment, and then the inference engine where the main processing of the elements will be taking place, right? Then the knowledge base, that is like a database or repository of knowledge or fact or idea about that particular field the expert system is being used for. So now let's see, and you ask a lot of questions. It has the rules base, it's a set of inference rules. The rules it follow that if this symptoms is this, if that symptom is that, then we can logically conclude or make an inference. That's what the rules base is talking about. So if you want to set up an expert system, you need to gather information from human experts or from written sources such as textbook, research papers, or the internet. The information is gathered to populate the knowledge base. You can see that, which needs to be created first. Then the rule base needs to be created, which is made up of a series of inference rules. The inference engine itself needs to be set up. The user interface needs to be designed or developed in such a way that user can easily or comfortable interact with the expert system. Then once the system is set up, it needs to be fully tested to be sure that it's working, according to the intention, behind creating the expert system. So for example, in medical diagnosis, we have the input screen. First of all, an interactive screen is presented to the user where it will say, welcome, so input your name, what is your symptom, and this and that. Then we have the output screen, the screen that's still under user interface, whereby it's going to give response to the user than the actual expert system where a whole lot of processing will be done. So if you want to answer this question using this knowledge, you can just say that describing how expert system produce diagnosis of an illness, you can just start by saying an interactive user interface appears. The user interface has to be interactive, that is, the user can easily communicate with the expert system. An interactive user interface appears on the screen, you understand. Then user asks questions about the illness, you understand. The system asks questions about the illness. All right, then the questions are usually in form of yes or no so that it will be easier. Usually in form of, or a type of, the questions are usually a type of yes or no form. Questions. Then the user responds to the question, respond to the questions. Then answer leads other question. So as it's giving answer, it leads to other question. From there, the inference engine will search the knowledge base, searches the knowledge base, and it will use the rules base. You see all the components are being captured. Then from there, the output screen lists probable diagnosis. Just simple. Then also it uploads an explanation of the diagnosis. So something like this, that's how the process will take place. So if you want to answer this question, you can use any of this. It's a formal question, so you can make use of any of these points to earn your 4 mark in this question. So take note of that. Then let's look at question 3b. Explain how an expert system could produce an incorrect diagnosis of an illness. It is possible that the expert system could produce an incorrect diagnosis. A whole lot of reasons can happen. For example, you know that the expert system has been programmed, you understand, for a particular illness, diagnosis of a particular illness. So it cannot easily adapt to new circumstances or illness. So the expert system cannot easily adapt to new circumstances or even illness. All right. So, or the user may have entered incorrect data. It is possible to have that. So, or the illness, the illness may not be stored in the knowledge base. So the knowledge base is where all the human idea, facts, knowledge will be stored. So such might not be in the knowledge base of the expert system, so it could give an incorrect diagnosis. So that is quite possible. Then question 4, a company is creating a customer database. Yeah, this is database. The database needs to be tested with live data. So when we're doing system lifecycle, we said when a new solution, ICT solution, is being developed, then the data test data needs to be put into the system while it's being developed to see how it will work in real-time situation. So we have different kind of test data. We have live, normal, abnormal, and extreme. So explain what is meant by live data. Do you understand? That's what the question is saying. So, and we have said then that live data, and this is a 1 mark question, so it's very simple. Live data, it is test data whose result is known. You can also say that it is real data used in a company already. Or say, okay, the output is already known. Also, for B, explain the issues associated with using live data to test this database. Now when you are using live data, one of the getting careful when you are building a new ICT solution and you want to test it, you need to be careful when you are testing it with live data, of course, because live data will be data that is already being used in that organization, that really matters to the organization. So one issue that can be associated with using live data to test the database could be that the data in that organization could contain personal data of some employees or so, and if that will be used, then it requires permission to use the data. It requires permission to use under Data Protection Act. You understand? So, and another thing is that even if you have been given permission to use it, the data could breach The data could breach data protection legislation, and also the data needs to be deleted after testing. You know, all of these are very important. So any two here will earn you the full mark in this question. Then another one, that's question 4C. A test strategy was produced for this database. Still on chapter 7, whenever you are creating a new ICT solution, new system, and you have gotten to development and testing, you need to develop a test strategy. So in this question now, a test strategy was produced for this database. Explain what is meant by test strategy. The command for explain simply means set out purposes or reasons, make the relationship between things evident, provide why and or how, and support with relevant evidence. So if you want to answer this question, you need to state it clearly that what a test strategy is. So a test strategy simply describes the testing approach of the database. The approach that will be used to test the database even while it's being developed. Okay, another thing you can put is that it maps out how the testing is to be carried out, and in that case it will include the module. You know, when you are testing a system, or you are designing a system, developing a system, is designed module by module. So it needs to be tested module by module. That's modular testing, and as a whole. Okay, so it will include module or full systems testing. So any of these will earn you the full mark. Then the next question, that's question 5. The cloud can be used for computer gaming. Cloud, so that's cloud computing, can be used for computer gaming. One major issue is the protection of personal data. So 5A, discuss, apart from the protection of personal data that has been mentioned here, protection of personal data, the benefits and drawbacks of gaming on the cloud. So don't talk about protection of data because it has been mentioned already. The benefit, discuss benefits and drawbacks of gaming on the cloud. So if you're gaming on the cloud, what are the benefits and drawbacks? So let me start with the benefits. Of course, cloud computing is when whatever you are doing on the computer, and it will be powered by the internet, right? So whatever you are saving or the data you are retrieving, they are being saved on remote servers that are in a faraway location from where you are accessing it for. So you are accessing the data or retrieving the data remotely. So that's what we mean by cloud computing or cloud storage. So the question now is, what are the benefits and drawbacks of gaming on the cloud? So let me start with the benefits. You could say that from the benefit, you could say if you do that, many user games can be easily used. Do you understand? So that's one benefit. You can use many user games while you use it remotely. Then because of that, you save money. Money is saved as expensive gaming machines need not to be purchased, because you know, when you want to play very high graphics games, you require to buy gaming machines that support high definition video quality. You understand? So you don't need to purchase that, because you're doing that, you're accessing those things remotely. And another thing, because it will be used via the internet, so you can be sure that the games are up to date. They are up to date, of course. Then you can play from many places. You don't have to be in your sitting room to play game. You know, if you are with your console, you stay wherever the console is, but you can play from many places. So that's one of the advantages. It allows user to connect or play from many places. And another one is that you have many games available. Many games are available. So we have some benefits such as this. Then when you talk about the drawbacks, you could say you need stable internet is required. So the cost of getting that, then it needs greater bandwidth, because you are dealing with high resolution, high graphics game, so it requires greater bandwidth. Okay, then another issue is that you don't personally own the game, because you're playing it online. User does not own the game. Then there is high tendency that the game will be lagging, so it is more liable to lag. Another one that is very important is that there may be a monthly subscription to play, so which could be expensive. There may be a monthly subscription to play, which could be expensive. Let me put that, which could be expensive. Right, so these and many more are the benefits and drawbacks of gaming on the cloud. Let's go to the next question, question 5b. Encryption can be used to protect personal data. So the keyword here is encryption, protecting personal data when gaming. Right, what is meant by encryption? What is meant by encryption? That is quite simple. What is explain what is meant by encryption. You remember the other time we look at explain is set out purposes or reason, provide why and how. So explain what is meant by encryption for 2 marks. So what we are going to say is that encryption is the process of scrambling. Encryption is the process of scrambling or encoding, if you don't call it scrambling, encoding data before, and don't forget they said when gaming, because this question continues, before the data will be what? Will be sent to the cloud. So before transferring data to the cloud. So simply put, you say encryption converts plain text into ciphertext. You understand? Ciphertext. And what is the purpose of encryption? Like we said, the meaning of explain. When plain text or plain data is converted into ciphertext, it makes it unintelligible, which makes the data hard to be understood in case it is ever intercepted by unauthorized person. Okay, that is what encryption is. Then the next one, which is C. One player wants to send the list of players and their scores to a friend as an attachment. State the precautions that need to be taken when sending and receiving the attachment. I want us to take note of this. States the precautions that need to be taken when you're sending and receiving the attachment. One player wants to send the list of players and their scores to a friend as an attachment. So this is just telling you how to be sure, how especially with e-safety. Okay, so what you need to do, number one is precaution is you can say use an up-to-date antivirus software, okay, on the computer to be sure before you send the attachment or before you receive the attachment, before you download the attachment on your computer. Another thing is that make sure you scan the attachment for viruses. You know, it is very important. Another thing you can do also for e-safety is that you can remove all personal data, the document. That's very important. And then you can encrypt or password the document. You understand, especially if it contains personal data, or password the document or file if personal data is being sent. Okay, you can also check that the attachment is being sent to correct email addresses. Right, that's very important. So any 3 points here will earn you the full mark. Let's go to question 6. Some friends are planning to explore a remote area of India. They need to stay in contact with their families and can either use a smartphone or a satellite phone. Evaluate the use of a satellite phone rather than a smartphone in this scenario. Look at the mark. This is a 6-mark question, so when you are attempting this question, you need to be careful. Now when they say evaluate, what does evaluate means? Let's look at that. Evaluate simply means judge or find the quality, importance, amount or value of something. So you judge. What can you say about the thing? What is good about it? What needs to be improved? So that is, you are judging, you are making a valid judgment. That is what we call evaluate. So if you want to evaluate this, because the question is saying that evaluate the use of a satellite phone rather than, so if you are judging for the use of satellite phone, you state that, and against it, you state it. Do you understand? So because comparing the two, and you judge for satellite phone, and the other way around, you judge against the satellite phone. So this is a 6-mark question, so you could make it 3 points for satellite phone and 3 points against satellite phone. You understand? So if you start, you can do this way and say, you can say smartphones use land-based towers, so, and they are less likely to be found in remote areas. Less likely to be found in remote areas. Don't forget, the scenario says that they are planning to explore a remote area. So whatever you want to say must be in line with the scenario. So because of this, a smartphone will not be the best option. So they are likely to be found, their towers, network towers are less likely to be found in remote areas. So they are not the best. Do you understand? So for that reason, you can say that satellite phones are more likely to get a signal. And another thing is that their range is no longer in a satellite phone. It's no longer in a satellite phone. So you can say that, and because of that, you can still say that satellite, this is range, not rangers, sorry. Range is no longer in a satellite phone. You can also say that satellite phones are more robust. They are more robust. And when you want to speak against it, you can say satellite phones work better when it is outdoor. You understand? So you can say for against now, you can say satellite phones need expensive licenses to use, right? Then they are more expensive to purchase. This is phones, sorry. Are more expensive to purchase. You can also say that they tend to be used for voice calls or text only. Voice or text calls. Okay, you can say smartphone can be used for more types of communication. You know, for smartphone you can do all kind of communication, all types. So smartphone, because you are speaking against satellite here, so you can talk about smartphone, the benefit of smartphone. Smartphone can be used for more types of communication. You can do emailing, instant messaging, you understand? So that is that. So you can make it 3 points and you earn your 6 marks. Now let's go to question 7. A company is planning to implement a new computer software. It is going to use direct changeover. Do you still remember this direct changeover under implementation? One of the reasons for using this method is that the benefits are immediate. This is one of the advantages of direct changeover or direct implementation method. Discuss other benefits and drawbacks of using direct changeover. Discuss benefits and drawbacks. Look at it. So you have 4 marks here. So you could make it 2 benefits and 2 drawbacks. Okay. So now to do that, you can just say what are the benefits apart from the fact that the benefits are immediate. So what are actually the benefits? So you can say, so because there is only one set of staff compared to parallel implementation. So direct changeover is cheaper as there is no increase in staff cost or no need to employ more staff. Another thing you can say is that they only need to use one set of computer equipment because they are not running parallel. Do you understand? So you can say they only need to use one set of computer equipment. So it is cheaper as no extra computers need to be purchased. You can see that as I'm saying each of the points, I'm stating also the reason why it has that benefit. And again, if it is drawbacks now, as the question has asked, you can say as the system is implemented immediately, there can be a whole lot of issues. So for the drawbacks now, since the direct changeover is implemented immediately, staff would have very little time in order to train and get used to the new system. You understand that? You can also say that if there are issues with the changeover, then there will be a period of time when neither systems are operational because they have stopped the old system overnight. So there will be a lot of issue. So you can say if there are issues with the direct changeover, then the company may lose money. Why? Because there may be a period of time when neither systems are operational. All right, good. So just 4 points. Now question B says that explain what is meant by the benefits are immediate. When we say the benefits are immediate, what does that mean with direct changeover? What does that mean? It simply means that there is no need for further training of staff or testing, or you have just started using the new system so that you begin to enjoy the features of the new system. So that's the meaning of that. So it simply means the system has been implemented straight away. Okay, that is without further training of staff, or you can say the whole system is implemented at once. Right, so this is what you can say when implemented. Okay, so this is correct now. Then question 8 states one example of a device that can be used to read data from the following storage media. That is chapter 3, storage devices and media. You understand? Storage devices and media. Now state one example of a device. So you already have the media, but the device that will be used for it. So for optical, you have maybe CD, you understand? CD, it could be CD, it could be DVD, it could be Blu-ray disc reader. So any of the reader, either CD reader, DVD reader, or Blu-ray disc reader. And if it is magnetic, it could be magnetic hard drives. You understand? And it could be magnetic tape drives or magnetic tape drives. If it is solid state, that is very simple. That could be solid state drive, and it could be that's otherwise called SSD, and it could be pen drive, and it could be flash drive, pen drive, or flash drive, or SD card reader, and so on and so forth. Okay, so question 9, this is on chapter 4, computer networks and its effect. So the question is saying that computer use NIC, that is network interface card. Network interface card. Explain the purpose of NIC. You know, NIC is a piece of hardware. You know, it's an hardware, okay, that is built for the purpose of allowing a computer to connect to a network. So if they ask you, you can simply say, but the question is actually asking for the purpose of it. So what we are actually explaining is not just NIC, but the purpose. Why do we use NIC? This is where many candidates get it wrong. The question is not just asking what is NIC, but the purpose of a NIC. So you are explaining the purpose of a NIC. If you go back to explain again, you see that explain means set out the purpose or reason. So why we use NIC or the purpose of it. Okay, so you can start by saying the NIC provides a computer, that's one of its purposes, provides a computer with a connection to a network. You could say it allows the computers to communicate with other devices on the network. You could also say it provides a link with Ethernet or Wi-Fi. You could also say it provides the device with its own MAC address. So the MAC address of a particular computer is engraved on the NIC. You understand? That's the meaning of this point I just typed now. So then you could also add that it receives the flow of data on the network. So any four of it, let me add that it controls or receives the flow of data on the network. Okay, good. So any four here will earn you the 4 marks. Another thing you can say is that okay, I think I've explained that already. Controls. Okay, good. Then let's go to question 9b of this question. A user wishes to connect a set of Bluetooth headphones to a computer. Describe, that's a command word. Describe how the headphones can be connected to the computer by Bluetooth. You know, you can connect two devices together wirelessly by using either Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, infrared, Li-Fi. You understand? So how? The question is asking you for the process of how you connect it. So if you look at describe is saying state the points, characteristics and main features of how it will be connected. So this is something that you should be conversant with. Of course, sometimes you connect your hands-free to your computer, to your phone, and so on and so forth. So let's start by saying turn on the Bluetooth headphones. The Bluetooth enabled headphones. Okay, then bring them close. You know, Bluetooth covers a small distance if you want to connect two devices together. So bring them close to the computer. Okay, and then you can say select Bluetooth settings on the computer. Why do you need to do that? So that you can click to add device, right? Then another thing that you can also put there is you can select the correct headphone from the list, because you are going to see the list of Bluetooth devices that can be connected to from the list. Then put the headphone into pairing mode. Then send the Bluetooth or pair the signal. So it's very simple. This is what many of us do every now and then. Okay, so I think that is straightforward. Now let's go to question 10. A company is planning to replace its computer system. It will need to carry out an analysis of the current system. This is chapter 7, system development cycle, analysis stage. State the information about the current system. State analysis of the current system. State the information about the current system that needs to be identified. So at the analysis stage, which is the first stage, that's when a whole lot of things will be identified, and this is a 3-mark question. So what you need to identify, let's look at some of them. You need to identify at this stage, you need to identify the inputs of the current system. Current, that's the old system. Current or old or existing system. Then another thing is that you identify the processing of the current system. Okay, you can also identify the outputs, so you know how the outputs look like. Okay, then you can also identify the user requirements for the new system. Take note of that. So you can do that at the analysis stage too. Then question B, a system specification is created during the analysis. Explain the purpose of a system specification. You know, when you want to create a new system, there's something we call system specification. This is talking about how will the new system, the configuration, the specification, what kind of configuration will it have, what kind of capacity will it have of the new system. So we call it system specification. So explain the purpose. Why do we need to create a system specification? Now if you create system specification, we do that such that we can identify, or that document itself identifies suitable hardware for the new system. Very important. And don't forget, this is a 3-mark question, so you should give 3 valid points. The document also identifies suitable software for the new system. Another thing is that it also justifies suitable hardware and software for the new system. Okay, then he explains what this software needs to do, and so on and so forth. So these are the purpose of system specification. Now let's go to question 11. A company is developing a piece of software. The company needs to have a clear sense of audience for its software so that it will be suitable for the users. This is under, I think this is chapter 11, audiences. So we have different kind of audiences. So now the question is saying that one of the characteristics that needs to be considered is the expectations of the user. Whenever you are creating ICT solution, you need to bear in mind who are the people that will use the solution. So that is why audience appreciation is very important. Knowing your audience, what do they want? What's their age group? What is it a formal audience? Are they literate? Are they illiterate? You know, all those things. Are they business people? So you need to know. So one of the characteristics that needs to be considered is the expectations of the users. So now state 2 other characteristics that need to be considered. You need to consider the age of the target group of your audience. You need to consider that the age of the target group or your audience. Okay, you also need to consider their experience. Have they used something like that before? Their experience or the audience. You need to consider the knowledge of the audience. What do they know? Before you talk about what you want them to know more. Then the next one is also very simple. So let's see. The developers are concerned about their software being pirated. Describe 3 methods the company could use to prevent software piracy. Now, to do that, they need to consider a whole lot of things. So, because when we have what we call intellectual property, there are different methods to explore. You understand? To make sure that you prevent your software from piracy. Okay? So, you mention one and method 1, then the description. So let's look at that. Describe is the command word. So want to prevent software piracy. So we can say for the first one, we can use legal protection. You know, legal protection. So any IT or ICT solution you're creating, you should protect it legally, exploring the legal provisions, especially in a particular country or region. So what is the description? There should be something like use of user agreement, and that's why whenever you want to install some software, you see user agreements where you tick I accept or agreed and all that. So use of user agreements, you can do that. For method 2, you can make use of serial key or product key. Now that means for that, if you don't have the serial key or the product key, that means you won't be able to install or use that software. So it's one of the ways by which, or method by which, you can protect your software from being pirated. It's only those people that have have the product key that will be able to use it, especially the premium service. So then what is serial or product key? A unique code which is entered by the user to prove that he has gotten it legally. Another one you can do is that you can use online verification, okay, or you can use watermark. This is very popular, watermarks, or what we call hologram. So hologram. So when you have that watermark, it means like it's like an emblem showing that the software is legal. So it is placed on the packaging to show that the software is legal. Okay, good. Now let's go to question 12. Question 12. Question 12. Parents are worried about their children's use of the internet. Explain how parents could monitor the use of the internet by their children. You know, we are in the era of everybody being on the internet 24/7. So explain how parents could monitor the use of internet by their children. So there are a whole lot of things that they can do. They could check their browsing history to know what kind of sites, what kind of content the children consume on the internet. So you can say parents can monitor browsing history of their children. They may only allow children to work under parent observation. They can explore sites and apps with their children together. Okay, they can install website monitoring software so that they can track what their children are doing. They can also record the activities the children are doing online, okay, or the website they have visited. All of this can help parents to monitor what the children do on the internet. So let's look at question 12b. Explain how the parents could control the use of the internet by their children. Don't forget, this is talking about how parents could monitor. This is just monitoring. So how could they control it? So monitoring is different from control. So to control what they do, this is just to know the kind of content the students or the children are consuming on the internet, the kind of content they put there, monitoring it. Now, to talk about explain how they could control the use of the internet by their children. So that could be that there are a lot of methods they can actually use. They can restrict the time they spend online. Restrict the time their children spend online. That's one. They can plan times when the children can use the internet, maybe only on weekend between so time and so time. They could also create content filters. Content filters to block inappropriate content. They could also switch on parental controls. They could turn on safe search on search engines. That is very important, so that the search results can be age appropriate for the children, right? So they could also make sure every device is protected with necessary software. They could also block pop-ups. There are some pop-ups that come with inappropriate content, so and so on and so forth. Any three. Then question 13, which is the very last question in this paper, states the need for generic file format. This question is not just asking you meaning of generic file format, but why do we need generic file formats? That's the question. Some candidate will just write the meaning of generic file format, and that's why many people will be surprised when they see what they eventually got after they have sat for the exam. So the question is asking, state the need. Why do we need it? Okay, so you can say, one, we need it because it allows the user to save files so that they can be opened on any platform, right? Also, you can say it allows users to transfer files from one specific package or software to another, to transfer. Okay, then question 13b says, give two examples of generic file formats used for images. For images, we have a lot of them. We have the GIF, we have JPG, or what we call the JPEG. We have PNG, we have SVG, etc. So any two here will give you the full mark. So yeah, we have come to the end of this paper. You can see how we thoroughly and carefully look at the question. There's a question here. Oh, how did we skip this question? This is question 9b. How did we skip that? Okay, let me do question 9b again. I don't know how it was skipped here. 9b. A user wishes to connect a set of Bluetooth headphones to a computer. Describe how the headphones can be connected to the computer by Bluetooth. I think I did that already. Okay, but okay, it's there. Okay, it's there. So it's there. So then you see we have come to the end of the paper, and that's what you have here. So in case if you have any question, please feel free to drop your questions in the comments box. I will attend to them as fast as possible. Make sure you like this video, share with other people as you're preparing for your theory paper in a few days, and then subscribe to our YouTube channel. Wish you all the best in your exam. Bye for now.